also don't want to be the championship caliber team that wants to complain about certain calls.
And make that as an excuse.
Yeah, because, side note, that's kind of what I don't like about Lowry as a Raptor and as our leader. He has so much yapping to do every whistle, every call. He has so many discrepancies, and I can see why refs don't really like him.
I understand that, but at the same time, last season compared to this season, if you can't retain some of that respect somehow, and who else is gonna say? Who else is gonna do that?
For sure.
There's no other guy. Like,
I think there's a way to do it.
gonna do it, but I know.
Lillard's a great example. You never really see Lillard. Lillard has the respect of the refs in the league, and you never really see him say much.
Fair enough. I don't think there's an exact perfect way to do it, and I don't want to blame Lowry for doing the way he's doing it. You know what I'm saying?
It's not even a blame thing. It's just something I noticed.
Okay.
Because as a ball fan, you hate that guy that's always yapping at the refs.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, I don't want to say blame, but you know what I mean. Like, he's the guy, and he has to do something. That's my opinion,
There's times where I just, I'm like, yo, Lowry, just shut it down. Like, come on.
This year we linked up with our boy Tristan, aka Riffic, aka Gourmet Cuts, and we were at the House of Hayes just chatting, and we couldn't help get into the same conversation about Kyle Lowry and a little bit of the Hall of Fame argument. So we sat down and decided to really hash it out, and this is how
whether he's a Hall of Famer.
Yo, those have been murmuring. I've been hearing the murmurs,
and
because of his good play, right?
Exactly.
And because of the Raptors' good play and him being the leader.
That's right, but
coming off a championship, obviously. So let's dive into that real quick because I know you have one position.
There's dissension. Definitely some dissension. I'm sure we'll see the eye to eye on some parts, but I mean, it's hard not to just think in general that Toronto Raptors are underrated, and the dynamics of the NBA today. Even Kawhi, when he came here, he didn't get the calls that he gets now, for that matter, or gotten in San Antonio, and you don't know how much that factors in. And I just want to think to myself, if his name was Chris Paul, and not just because he's Chris Paul, but if Chris Paul came to Toronto and won a championship, would Chris Paul be regarded now as a Hall of Famer just because he has the championship? He came to Toronto and he won the chip. Lowry, I don't know exactly what the stats are like, but for lack of a better word, he's a difference maker. He's a difference maker on the court and with regards to like winning games, winning important games. I think I saw a graph recently, top 25 difference makers in the game.
Yeah, but I'm sure that is relative to how valued you are to your team. And this is the thing about Lowry. I feel like, especially being the face of the Raptors for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least.
The Raptors have put a value on Lowry, on a level that I don't think any other team would.
That's true.
Okay.
But is it valid though?
It's valid relative to the Raptors. It is, because he's done what he's done for us. I don't even want to say the word so much, because I don't think he's given us more in the time that he's been here than, a Vince Carter or even a DeRozan per se. It's just how the narrative has worked out for him. So going to your comparison, being Chris Paul, very good comparison, and I understand where you're coming from with that. Here's what I'll say to that. When you're coming into the NBA, whether your journey is straight from high school, college, whatever, right? You're either a role guy or you're a star with expectations and a certain level of hype behind you, okay?
True.
So with Chris Paul, he came in as a star, and as his career has played out, he has underachieved as it pertains to what was expected of him. He has underachieved. He's led the league in steals. He's led the league in assists, I believe. And he's a perennial all-star. But he has underachieved in terms of what the end goal is for someone who cares about basketball.
Yeah, his overall ring.
Right.
Everything like that.
So in my opinion, even if his name was Chris Paul to me still isn't a Hall of Famer. But let's say, for the sake of argument, he is. Let's say if we're comparing one who is and one who isn't, or one who could potentially be, being Lowry. Now we go to Lowry, who comes in the league with no hype, no expectation, right? It's somewhat easier to overachieve and gain like a certain level of hype that you never had before, which seems like a bigger hype than one that you're coming in with. It seems bigger when you gain it later.
True enough.
Which is Lowry's story to his career.
I fully agree with
so with that being said, like in my opinion, it's easier to be the overachieving regular guy than the underachieving superstar.
Agreed.
Which I feel is.
But I don't think that dynamic discounts him from the conversation. I don't think.
The reason.
I know what you're saying.
It's only
there's more dynamics, right? Because we were talking about the one with the Raptors themselves just being on that team. But there's that dynamic. I think still like.
Okay, so let's move to the next one.
Which is you have a point. You have a point. But I think like because I know when you come into the league, people are gonna have their eye on you. You know, you're playing against a team. Okay, Chris Paul's on that team.
Schemes, scouting reports.
So yeah, exactly. All that's there. Kyle Lowry, you might not see that until maybe the last few years. You know, depending on what they were doing.
He had a career before the Raptors that really isn't even notable because it wasn't much.
Yeah, but Houston, it was a team he was on. Yeah,
Memphis and Houston. Yeah, he had a good run on Memphis where he was like a main backup guard.
Really?
What? I first learned about Lowry when he was in Memphis.
I learned about him in Houston.
I
thought he was he had a lot of potential in Houston.
Right.
He wanted to show out at the end of the season. One of those seasons, I think it was before he came, where he was like, all right, so I think it was Aaron Brooks that got injured.
Yeah.
And he was
Aaron Brooks was ahead of him.
Lighting any chance he got. He was like, minutes. Oh, let me put these points on the board.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, this guy, he can score, he can assist. He seems spry.
Right.
He seems like the kind of guy that could, like, not just spry, but like, tough, a bulldog as he turned out to be. And I was just like, I was excited. Like I was in the sports chat group talking about him. I was like, okay, guys, this is one. We got one. There's one piece. That's me. But at the end of the day, I didn't know how big he was gonna be. I just knew he had potential. Point guard. In terms of a point guard, you first of all, obviously you want a guy who can threes, but I mean,
I think he's a good point guard.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a
all around.
There's not a big pool of point guards in the league, man. There's not a huge pool, and he's a good
solid all around point guard.
You understand?
It's
underrated. It's underrated.
It is, but in my opinion, a couple of things. First of all, I feel like he's the face of the Raptors and the leader of the Raptors by default, in my opinion. By default. Not because he was always our best player, not because he was always our leader. Now, he was always our quote-unquote heart and soul. He always gave that effort.
Well, if
there's a stat for charge taking per minutes played or whatever, he's probably at the top of that list.
But that's what I think makes it a little easier to say it about him, because he kind of personified what the team kind of really was about.
But he was never the best player.
Before we were the team. I know, it's true. He was never the best player, but...
And even in all his efforts and everything he did for the team, imagine, everything he did for the team, which was quite a bit, he was never the best player.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, that's not always going to be the formula for the winning team.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, imagine not being the best player, but you're the face of the team. That's rare. That doesn't happen often. I think my point is in saying all of that, the whole default thing, everything, is that Lowry's situation is very rare. The Raptors have placed a value on him and have placed this light on him that no other team, in my opinion, would or even could if they had a chance or would want to. Everything that's happened to him as a Raptor has kind of been by default. Him playing his part, him maintaining loyalty and respect, which was resulted in him getting $30 million this year.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. What I'm saying is, you're.
Remember, we're talking about the discussion is, does he belong in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know if that takes away
right now
how good he is. That's what I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, people can discount him all they want. When they've tested him, he's kind of performed.
Okay, so is he is he as good as he seems, or do the Raptors make him better than he is?
There's been times when he hasn't played well enough, but the times when we needed him, okay, you could say Brooklyn. I don't know. Maybe he failed there. Failed.
That was rough though. It's tough to watch.
Exactly. There's a lot of times where he's injured or he just doesn't play good enough in the playoffs.
But all these things are still dings against him, in my opinion.
I agree with you. That's why I'm saying
there's
so many dynamics.
It comes down to the tone and the way you talk about him.
There's so many
couldas, the shouldas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But there's so many dynamics that work against you when you're here.
Okay, put it this way: Vince Carter came here, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't even do anything crazy special except the dunking stuff and that aspect of he's just special.
And he can score. He's an automatic bucket, yeah.
Right, but in terms of what he accomplished, other than Rookie of the Year, not much as a Raptor. Mm-hmm. Decent scoring, decent stat line, not much as a Raptor. However, somehow he has managed to even still to this day maintain a level of stardom that Lowry will never have. Even though Lowry has accomplished more than him as a Raptor. Imagine that.
That's just stardom, though. That's nothing to do with how good you are.
No, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how good you are, but it does go hand in hand. And in this league, stardom weighs a lot. Stardom will put you in a position.
Hall of Fame? I don't want to rate Hall of Fame.
But Vince is in the Hall of Fame discussion for some reason, and I don't even think he's done enough.
I don't want to rate Hall of Fame by how popular you are.
No, but it's all involved. It's all encompassing.
It is.
It's all encompassing. So right now we're talking about Lowry. So now we're doing the checks and balances. You're going down the box checklist.
Okay, let me ask you this: should any Raptor ever go to the Hall of Fame right now?